give in, tap out again. They try to burn you, they try to turn you upside down. They're gonna find out you're made for more than this. I know your story is not done yet. So get off the floor, come on and raise your hands and say, I am stronger than before. I'm a legend built from broken pieces, making something more. There's a new tomorrow, and I can't be stopped, no. You know I'm stronger.
Man, I love that song. Thanks, Matt Moore. Best song ever. Welcome to All Schuch Up, the podcast. Keep climbing. Keep climbing. That's the motto. That's the subtitle. Keep climbing, and that's what we're going to focus on over the next few episodes. Is working hard, going after what it is you've been dreaming about, going after what it is you need to go after, and just keep climbing, one step at a time. That's my goal with this podcast, is to tell my story and to have guests sit beside me and tell their story in hopes that we can inspire you to do the same. Nowadays, this generation, this time that we live in, a lot of people are... Personally, I know a lot of people who are just not happy where they are, but not willing to or afraid to make the changes necessary to better their life. And a lot of times, unfortunately, you get to be my age or older, and it gets even harder. It's you hear all the excuses all the time, like, I know, do you find yourself saying, it's too late, I can't do it, boy, I screwed up too many times, I ain't gonna do that again, there's no hope, I'm too old? I read somewhere once, something is only impossible until someone does it. Why not you? Why not you? Joshua, show us picture number 1. My excuse for a long time was I blame my past. My past messed me up. It's, and it doesn't determine who I am. It may have helped. It did help shape me and mold me, but it's not who I am. It's not my identity. My past is not my identity. My identity tomorrow will be what I work for and strive for today. So, with that being said, like 3 years ago, I think it was around 3 years ago, I was a really tough time, and I'll get to that later, but I was at a really tough time in my life, pretty dark place, and I just dug deep and really felt like I needed to make some changes. I needed to make some changes before it was too late. So, one of the ways I thought I could learn and figure out how to make some changes was to start listening to some audiobooks. I've never been one to read books. Ever since I was a little kid in school, I struggled. I read well, I just don't comprehend well. It doesn't sink in. So that's one thing I love about today's technology, audiobooks. I can listen to them, and I can listen to them over and over and over again if I want to. If a book really speaks to my heart, I'll listen to it 3 or 4 times over. Fortunately, I deliver parts for Fleet Pride, and I spend a lot of time on the road driving, and it's a perfect opportunity to listen to audiobooks and podcasts. And so for the last couple of years now, that's what I've been doing. And oh my goodness, talk about just awakening and good stuff. There's so much good stuff out there. So me personally, I owe my thanks for all the growth that has happened in my life over the last couple of years to 3 particular authors or podcasters. First and foremost, Mr. David Goggins. Wow. if you haven't read this book, or if you haven't listened to the audio version of this book, Can't Hurt Me, and now he has a second one out, never finished, phenomenal. It'll change your life if you allow it to. The guy's just incredible. I daily, when I'm struggling in situations, I ask myself that question that's on the wall behind me. I think you got a picture of that better too. What would Goggins do? I mean, it's just, I love that man. I love that man. He's literally changed my life. Thanks, Dave. Number 2, Cameron Hanes. Him and Goggins became friends because of, I think, Joe Rogan. He's kind of the middleman there. But anyway, Cameron Hanes, his book is called Endure. He's got a podcast now called The Keep Hammering Collective. And I just love everything about that man. He's just an incredible man. He's a hard worker. His work ethic is phenomenal. He's kind of made it a goal in his life to be the best bow hunter in the world, the most successful bow hunter in the world. And as far as I know, I haven't heard otherwise. He is. When he goes bow hunting, he has 100% success rate. And he does that by training physically. People used to laugh at him. If you listen to his book, you'll hear what I'm talking about. But people used to laugh at him like, you don't need to work out or run to go bow hunting. And I think his line always is, you don't have to, but you can be way more successful if you do. And he runs incredible, like 200-mile races and stuff. He lifts weights all the time. I think his motto goes something like run, lift, shoot. And he does those 3 things every day. He runs every day, he lifts weights every day, and he shoots his bow every day. Just incredible. And, whatever it is that you're dreaming of, whatever it is that you think you'd like to do with your life, if you could embrace that mindset to just do 2 or 3 things that will improve and better your success rate at what it is you want to do, and do it every day, it's almost guaranteed you will be successful. And I'll tell you this, there's a ton of room out there for successful people. I used to think, well, I kind of hate to root for someone who's racing. For example, I have a daughter who was racing cars. When she was racing, it was hard for me to be happy for and encourage other females to race, because then I thought that would decrease my daughter's chance. But I'm telling you what, there's enough room in the success locker for everyone. And when you develop the mindset that says, you want everybody else to be successful just as much as you do yourself, it can happen. It can happen, no doubt about it. So with that being said, and I forgot the last person, the third person. This one's a little different, but Mel Robbins. She's got a couple books out there, 3 or 4. I've listened to The High Five Habit and the 5-second rule. I've listened to both of those 3 or 4 times over while I'm driving. Incredibly simple little tricks and techniques that she teaches that are phenomenal. And I don't know, Mel, maybe you'll be hearing this, but I tell you what, your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 launch has got me going on things that I was procrastinating on many, many times. I use it when I get up in the morning. Sometimes I'm tired. I don't feel like getting up. I don't want to get up. And then I remember 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Launch like a rocket, baby. Let's go do this. And so anyway, simple stuff, but I can tell you it works. It works. So anyway, my name's Rick. I'm 61 years old. I'm a son, I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I'm a grandfather. I've been married to Tanya, my sunshine, that's another episode, for 21 years. We have 3 amazing children, and I have 2 other amazing children from my previous marriage, all 5 of which are a big part of my life today still. My 2 older children have blessed me with 5 awesome grandchildren. Over the next few episodes, as I turn the pages on this awesome, crazy, fun, sometimes not so fun, stupid, really stupid, full of mistakes at times, blessed at times life, full of good, bad, and other choices, and a ton of God's grace, you will get to know them all and you will be at times laughing, crying, cheering, cursing, and probably much, much more. I'm just an average guy. Give you an idea of what it is I like to do. I run 5 or 6 days a week. I can't say I like running. It's hard. At 61 years old, it's painful. And I'll be honest, the first half mile or 3/4 of a mile every time I run are difficult. I've been at it for about, 3 months now, and it's getting a little easier. The second half of my run, I've been running right around 3 miles, give or take a little bit, on a daily basis. But I love what it's been doing for me. I love how it's helped me develop a mindset of don't quit. When I run from start to finish. I don't quit. And trust me, I struggle with that a lot of times. But I love the way I feel afterwards. I have no intention of stopping anytime soon. I ran it's been maybe 6 weeks ago now, I ran my first 5K ever. And in my age group, over 50, I was fourth. So surprised myself, to be honest with you. It's kind of fun running with a group like that, because when I seen an older guy up in front of me, I wasn't going to let him beat me. I took off and went and go get him. And so I run. As you can see behind me, there's a lot of workout equipment. It's kind of my gym. This room behind me is a gym. We call it the Bat Cave, and you'll see more later why we call it that. That's coming up. I'll tell you about why I love Batman so much. But so I love to sit around the fire. I build a fire 3 or 4 nights a week out in my yard. That's my peace time. Someone told me a long time ago that when you have a stressful day at work or you have problems at work, that when they'd come home, they had a tree by their front door or a bush, and they called it their problems from work bush, and they would stop and hang all their problems from work on that bush before they would go in the house to be around their family. And I thought that was pretty terrific, because I know a lot of times you have a bad day at work, you come home and your family pays for it, and that's not good. So I use a fire for that. I love sitting around the fire. I can sit out there for hours all by myself. I love that alone time. And so I love fires. I love campfires. I love going camping. I love boating. I love water skiing. Oh, I love going fishing with my son Joshua. Joshua and I have done a lot of fishing lately together. We fished in a bass tournament last year, and we kicked. No, we didn't. We didn't hardly catch any. But I'll tell you what, I wouldn't trade it for the world. We had a blast. 2 days, hardly no sleep, getting up and being on the water, watching the daylight come. It was wonderful. Just me and my boy Joshua. So yeah, I love being active. I did mention that I love water skiing. I mean, I really love water skiing. In fact, one of my goals, one of the motivators that got me working out 3 years ago when I started lifting weights and working out, one of my goals that I had in mind was to be the best water skier up on Londo Lake. Or, I remember for my Uncle Bob, he taught me how to water ski when I was 8 or 9 years old. Actually, I think my older brother might have taught me the first time. But Uncle Bob pulled me and my cousins and his kids, he pulled us skiing anytime we asked. He never said no. I don't care how busy he was, what he was in the middle of, he would set it down, he would drop it to pull us water skiing. And I remember for years and years skiing behind Uncle Bob's boat, and I loved it. And then I remember on his 74th birthday, I pulled him water skiing. And all my life watching him water ski, the man was he was the man on the ski. He was good. And on his 74th birthday, he cut it up out there. I couldn't believe it, on a slalom ski. And I had the opportunity to pull him, and that was the last time he water skied. And I kind of made it a personal goal that I'm going to do it. I'm going to have somebody pull me on my 75th birthday, just so I can beat Uncle Bob. But we'll see. We'll see how if we ever get there. So anyway, with that being said, you're probably asking yourself, so why should I listen to this guy? Why should I tune back into his podcasts on a regular basis? How is he going to help me? Didn't graduate from high school, has no degree. A lot of what I feel I have to offer you guys is more of a don't do what I did story. Or if you did do what I did, maybe some of the ways that I got up, stood up the ladder, got back on it, and started climbing again. One step at a time. Will encourage you to do the same. My story's a pretty crazy one. A life that's made up of a lot of mistakes, stumbles, falls, downright stupid choices, drugs, alcohol. In fact, tell me something you've done in the past. Bet you I can top it. But that'll come as we continue on. Am I proud of that? Hell no. But I own it. And that's one of the best ways I found to help myself, and that's one of the best ways that I feel I can help you. Put it out there, baby. Put it out there. Brutally honest. Share your story. Share your scars. I share my scars. I'm going to tell you guys about the hurt that I've had. I find power in those scars. I mean, for the longest time, for most of my life, and I know a lot of people are this way, for most of my life, I tend to hide those scars. I don't let people around me see them because I want them to like me, and I'm afraid or embarrassed or, not real proud or wasn't real proud of my scars, and so I would hide them. So really, by hiding those scars and putting on a face and acting a certain way to get people to like me is, to be honest with you, that's not being honest with you. That's lying. And so I'm getting better at this. I'm still working on this. I still have some scars that are hidden, but nowadays I'm pulling them out, putting them on display, kind of like trophies now. I'm finding power in my scars, and it's amazing the feeling that you get when you open up one of those closet doors and bring some of that stuff out. It's just, it's just an amazing feeling. And there's power, like I said, there's power in that. And so anyway, I don't know if you guys heard, I'm sure you did, but did you hear the opening song? That's my friend, Matt Moore, and he's going to be on an episode here pretty soon, and we're going to talk about the story behind this song. But I mean, hands down, the best song ever. My favorite song. I've been around 61 years. I love the Ramones. I love a lot of Christian rock. I've listened to a lot of music in 61 years. I've had a lot of favorite songs over the years. Right now, no doubt about it, Stronger by Matt Moore is my favorite song. It's on his album, The Art of Precious Scars. Why I love the song so much is I love the message that comes from Matt's heart. Just a quick couple lines from the song. You're made for more than this. I know your story is not done yet. Come on, get off the floor, raise your hands and say I'm stronger than before. I'm a legend built from broken pieces. I mean, I love that. I love that message. I love that message. And that's kind of what's going on in my life as far as change, and that's what I'm hoping we can inspire you to do, is get off the floor. Get off the floor, get up, get moving, start climbing. Let's do this, man. Let's do this. I'm telling you, just in the last couple of years, I've been doing it, and it's just so awesome. And it's hard as heck. Sometimes it's really hard, but you know, I can't wait to have Matt on here, and then we're going to talk way more about that message. So, in the meantime, you can find his music pretty much anywhere you stream your music from. Great stuff, Matt Moore. And so, let's do a quick highlight or low light, depending on how you want to look at it. Run through my life. I'll tell you my story a little bit. We'll just do a really condensed, super fast version of it. I grew up with 5 brothers, 3 older brothers and 2 younger folk. My 3 older brothers were half brothers. They were my dad's boys, but not my mom's. I was my mom's first, and then my mom and dad had me and 2 others, for a total of 6. And funny little side story, all 6 of us, our names begin with R. Russell, Roger, Ross, Rick, Randy, and Ronald. And over the years, my dad always had a boat, and my earliest memory was, of course, the 4 R's, because I was the 4th one, and I remember the boat was named the 4 R's. But then Randy came along, so he had to change the name of his boat to the 5 R's. Then when Ronald came along, it became the 6 R's. And the last boat he ever owned, that was the name of his boat, the 6 R's. Needless to say, he was a pretty proud dad. So, both my parents, they both worked full-time jobs, and we were pretty well off. In addition to our nice home we had, Auburn, Michigan, we had a place on the lake up north. We always called it the cabin. It wasn't a little log cabin. It was a pretty nice place on the lake up north. But from here on out, when you hear me referring to the cabin, that's what I'm talking about. Joshua's got a picture up there. That's pretty much all family in that picture. Cousins, aunts, uncles, and that was all through the 70s. That was almost every weekend. It was many weekends that were like that. Just good times. Good times. You know, when I was a kid, and even later in life, and in fact to this day pretty much, well, not as much today, but anyway, it's what I lived for, especially as a kid, teenager, in my 20s and 30s. I couldn't wait to be up there. When I was in elementary school, I did crappy in school, didn't get good grades because I spent a lot of time thinking about and planning and what I was going to do up at the cabin. Couldn't wait to get there. And, you know, something else about the cabin that's pretty cool is all my friends were weekend friends. So one in particular, his name was Tommy. I'm going to talk a little bit about Tommy. Tommy and I, my mom used to say she couldn't pry us apart with a 2x4. We were close. And I think one of the main reasons we were such good friends is because we didn't have enough time together to get sick and tired of one another or to get mad at each other. We only had 2 days a week on the weekends and we got along great. We were best friends. And another way to describe what the cabin meant to me, and I know a lot of people, you know, I know for sure in Michigan a lot of people feel this way. There's this invisible barrier when you leave your home where you work and go to school and everything at home. When you leave that home and that environment to go up to the cabin or to go up northern Michigan, you pass through this barrier. It's an invisible barrier, but it's there. And it grabs all your problems from school, all your problems from work, all your problems back home, and it just hangs on to them for you. While you're up north, you don't even think about those things. And it just hangs on to them for you, then you get to pick them up on your way back on Sunday night. So, but I've always said that. People ask me what's so special about the cabin, and that's always been my line that I use to describe what it's like to go up there. So, yeah, Tommy and I tell you what, from 3 or 4 years old, we became friends. We rode little pedal tractors together. We pulled wagons around. We built tree forts. Then when we learned how to ride bikes, we started building ramps and riding bicycles and jumping ramps. We got mini bikes together. We when we were building forts, we also built a raft. And we had poles, and Tommy and I would stand at each end of the raft and use the poles and push in on the bottom of the lake, and we would push ourselves all around the lake. And I tell you, it was some real Tom Sawyer shit, let me tell you. So when Tommy and I were kids growing up, life was grand, I'll tell you. In fact, maybe someday, I haven't asked him yet. In fact, Tommy and I haven't talked in a couple of years now, but I'm going to see if I can't get him on here. We can do an episode of the Tom Sawyer days or something we could call it. We'll see. But, Tommy and I were close from, like I said, 2 or 3 years old till about 14 years old. And something happened when I was 14. A new family came up to the lake. New family bought a cabin up there. And they had a son. No, they had several kids, but there was one that was about my age. And he did something Tommy never approved of, and pretty much that, ruined our friendship for a long time after that. This new friend introduced me to, or should I say he kind of talked me into smoking pot. We're going to call this friend Beer. Yep, Beer. If you know me or you know him, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But again, another story. Until him, life was grand. But hanging out with Beer, we chose to take a left turn down a very bumpy dirt road. A 20 plus year long bumpy road. Oh, I'll tell you, I'll just say several brushes with death, a lot of people hurt, and a journey that for years I wish I could stop, go back, and start over again. Oh, don't get me wrong. During those 20 plus years, there was a lot of good times. I mean, when you're traveling down a bumpy dirt road, you still see a lot of cool stuff along the way, So I'm not saying that it was just a complete waste of time, but it was rough. It was rough. A lot of dumb choices, a lot of mistakes that cost me, a lot of mistakes from 30, 40 years ago that still to this day have effects on my life. So, anyway, it was tough. A lot of folks during that stage of their life, their upper teens, young 20s. Joshua, what's picture number 8? I've got a note on here to take a look at picture number 8. Did we already look at that?
No.
Can you bring it up for the people to see? Oh, okay. So I got a picture up here of some seedlings. They were planted, and I don't even know what kind of plant they are, but they're long and skinny. And, when I was thinking about this bumpy dirt road and how, I had a lot of good times in there, but a lot of bad times too, I was thinking of a seedling. I know the Bible talks about seeds that are planted in good soil or bad soil, or I believe it was David Goggins talked about with lots of sunlight or no sunlight. And so imagine, if you would, with me, a seedling. Let's say it's an oak tree. It drops an acorn and it starts to grow. And maybe at first it's got plenty of sunlight and moisture, and it's looking pretty good, gets 2-3 inches tall, got a few leaves, looking pretty. But then the seasons change and the angle of the sun and the trees around it get bigger, whatever, and the sun gets blocked out. And that seedling, that small tree, will start to reach and stretch and try real hard to find sunlight, to get light, and it gets weaker and weaker and skimpier looking and not so good, not so good at all. Kind of like the bumpy road was doing to my life, It was pretty good. I was blooming at first, and then things were looking pretty bad for a long time. But then, let's say, somebody cuts down a tree or two, or the seasons change, or the angle of the sun changes, or a storm blows down a tree, whatever, some light gets through, and then that tree starts to flourish again, and it's looking pretty good for a while. It's getting bigger, but it's, you can still tell that it's got a lot of scars. It's really struggling. And then the trees around it grow back up and block the light again. And this repeats itself over and over until, because it never gave up, it eventually gets to a spot where it's above the trees around it, and it's in the light all the time, and it's flourishing like crazy. So anyway, I thought about that when I was thinking about that time of my life where I was making a lot of bad choices, and I kind of felt like that plant wasn't getting any sunshine. And part of the reason why I call my wife Sunshine now, because she brings a lot of that light to my life anyway. But that's a whole nother episode again. So but anyway, back when I started making all those mistakes, a lot of people, they're in that stage of life, they're mapping out choices for their future, going to school, planning ahead, and not me. The only thing I was trying to find on a map was the next party. So it cost me. I was taking steps on a ladder, all right, but most of them weren't in the right direction. So anyway, so I think on that note, I'll take a break for a second here, and Joshua can hit pause there, and we'll come back in a second. Unrecord. Yep. So I guess real quick, I kind of mentioned a couple things up to a certain point in my life, but just in a nutshell, let's go through this quick list I got written down here. So, at times when times were really bad, that I was doing a lot of drugs and drinking and partying, didn't seem to care. There were some times of light in those situations. Like one, for example, is I knew I needed to change. I knew I needed to grow up and get my crap together, if you will. So I thought I'll join the Navy. And, I had big aspirations at first. I was going to join the Navy, get my life together. I scored real high on the ASVAB test to get in the Navy, so I was able to go to submarines if I wanted to, and so I thought that sounded pretty cool. From everything I heard about submariners, they were one of the kind of elite, nothing like the SEALs, but yet, they were a pretty elite group. So that's what I did. I joined the Navy, and I went and became a submariner. A lot of cool times during that time. I had my life together pretty good. I was going to school for sonar school out in San Diego, California. I spent 9 months out there, loving life, having a good time out in California. A Michigander, 18 years old, out in California. Was seeing and doing a lot of things that most of my friends back home to this day probably haven't got to do. And so it was good. It was good. And then I got on a submarine, and being on a submarine was good. There was 90 of us on the sub, where most surface ships have 300-400 people on board. There was only 90 of us, so we ate real good. We got steak and lobster once a week. And I remember my friends that weren't on submarines were always jealous of that. So, but sure enough, to me, partying still seemed to matter most. And again, more stupid choices made. Ended up getting kicked off the submarine for smoking weed. So then I kind of copped an attitude, and I still had 3 years to go in Joshua could bring up the picture of the submarine. I was on the USS Tenosa. It's a U.S. Navy fast attack submarine. I'm pretty proud of it. That was pretty awesome. I wished I would have. But anyway, I didn't. And, again, my past has helped mold me, but it hasn't defined me. So mistakes I made, only I look back on it now, and it's made me stronger in the end. So got kicked off the subs, and I got a bad attitude. Went AWOL a couple times. I come home on leave and met a girl, and just decided to stay home for a while, not go back when I was supposed to. Again, stupid choices. And then when I was back on the surface ship, I was on the Hermitage. I think Joshua's got a picture of that too. I'll show you a picture of the Hermitage. It was just it's part of what they call the Gator Navy. It's kind of funny, but most of the guys on this ship that I was on were either kicked off of submarines or, the sole purpose of the Hermitage was to put troops on the beach. That ship that you seen a picture of, the whole inside was hollow, and it would actually sink down in the water, and the inside would fill up with water, and they'd drive those boats that put troops on the beach, those boats with the ramp on the front. And there wasn't a lot of weapons, there was no sonar, and they were the first I think that's why there were so many people who were kicked off other things and stuff, because it was like they were the first line of attack for the enemy. We would go in and put troops on the beach, and we were very, very vulnerable, to say the least. But the one good thing that came out of that was I was at the helm, and having grown up on the lake and driving boats and stuff, I was pretty good at driving a ship. And I was on the helm one day, and the captain was up top, and he was watching the compass, and he noticed that I was staying pretty steady, wasn't varying much off a course at all, and so he hollered down on the radio and asked who was on the helm and asked me to come up there. So somebody took my place on the helm, and I went up, talked to the captain, and he asked me to be the seedy tail helmsman for the Hermitage. And for those of you that don't know, seedy tail helmsman is the person that's at the wheel, person that's driving the ship when it's in tight maneuvering situations, when we're coming in and out of port, when we come alongside another ship to get fuel. When a couple examples that were pretty awesome, I drove up the Thames River in London, England, and drove the ship through the Tower Bridge in London. And first time they opened the Tower Bridge for a ship to go through in 12 years. And I was at the wheel. That's pretty cool. I drove in and out of, all the way through and then back again, the Panama Canal. I drove up the Mississippi River to New Orleans. But again, I was good at the helm, but I still wasn't good when it come to being making smart choices, if you will. For example, Panama Canal. Driving through the Panama Canal and did really good. They warned us over and over and over again as we were approaching Panama that when we got to go out on Liberty, go out on the town, to stay in the well-lit areas, because the relationships between Panama and the U.S. back then, it was 1981 probably, they weren't good. They weren't good at all. And if we were doing anything that even kind of looked like trouble, we had targets on our back. And sure enough, we didn't listen. Me and a couple of my friends, we went and found some Panama marijuana and bought a joint, and were smoking a joint, and got arrested. Hands down, 61 years old, been through a lot in life, hands down the scariest 2 days of my life. The cop that arrested us had us on the ground, had his gun cocked, he was shaking, he was yelling at us and screaming in Spanish, and didn't know what he was saying, he was sweating. Like I said, he had his hammer pulled back on his gun. I thought for sure those couple of hours that it took for him to get the paddy wagon there and get us hauled to jail were the longest couple hours of my life. I thought for sure I was going to die. And then once we got into the cell, the treatment was absolutely terrible. They treated us just terrible. Put us in a room that was basically a hole dug in the ground, with a hole dug in the corner to go to the bathroom in, and with a bunch of other people. Most of them didn't speak English, no communication at all. nobody talking to us, telling us what's going on, if we were going to get out. And the funny thing was my friend, when that cop first started coming towards us, he ate the joint, and that's the only thing we had. So we didn't even have any drugs on us, although we were doing wrong. Don't get me wrong, we deserve punishment, but we didn't have anything on us, and so it was more or less just accusation, and we didn't think we were coming out of there. We thought we were gonna die in that hole. And lucky for us, about 18 or 19 hours after being in there, the Navy came and got us. And so thank God. So then we got back to the ship. I drove us back out of the Panama Canal, and as a reward for being good representatives of America, the captain decided he was going to let the crew go to Mardi Gras. We come back to Louisiana, New Orleans. I drove up the Mississippi River, right into New Orleans, right at the beginning of Mardi Gras. And everybody on the ship got to go out and experience Mardi Gras, except for me and my two friends who got arrested. Mm-hmm. We had 60 days restriction. We had to pay back the Navy ended up paying, it was crazy, like $750 a piece to get us out of jail. But, great stories to go home and tell your mom, dad, right? Anyway, so, then I got married, got out of the Navy, got married, partied like crazy, Bay City, had some good friends that had a really awesome band, did a lot of stupid stuff, 2 drunk drive-ins in maybe 3 years' time. Many times I should have been dead, should have been a statistic, and but something great happened during that time too. I got married and I had my first child. Courtney's her name. And one day I was partying all the time, no doubt about it. But one day I was at work. I was painting a house that had burned, and was using Kills paint. It's a paint used for covering smoke damage and the smell of smoke in a house. And I was painting with Kills, and it's real strong paint, not good to be breathing. And I was doing pretty good all day. I painted all day long, and I kept changing the filters on my respirator. Getting towards the end of the day, ran out of filters, only had a little bit left to do, so I just kept going, and before you know it, I was flipping out on Kills paint. I only know the last couple hours at that house from the stories my coworkers told me. I don't remember it at all, but I know that I literally was squirting a stream of paint out of my painter up in the attic and laughing and trying to draw pictures. And they made me come down and go outside, so I come down from upstairs and went outside, walked around the house. They said I was laughing one minute, crying the next. And my buddy Cooter, he drove me home. And when I got to the front door to walk in the house, Courtney, my oldest, my first child, was, I think, probably 2 at the time, right around 2 years old. She was talking, and every day when I come home from work, she'd come running to the door with her arms held high, yelling, "Daddy." And just like every other day, that day she'd come running to the door, and I remember picking her up and thinking to myself, I either got to be a dad or I got to be a partier, but I can't be both. And I remember crying and telling my wife at the time, that, and that the next day I was going to go put myself in a treatment program somewhere. And I told her, I said, tomorrow morning, once I sleep this off, I'm probably going to try to talk myself out of it. But I didn't. I got up the next morning. I went to Bay Haven Treatment Center for 4 weeks. Went darn near 20 years without a drop of alcohol or a joint after that. A lot of good things happened after that. A lot of good things. So anyway, that's that story. I kind of went on a little bit longer than I wanted to on that, but anyway. So it wasn't long after that one of my good friends my whole life, Greg, I would say probably my best friend, Greg was engaged to a girl named Barb, and we went on a double date. Greg and Barb and my wife and I, we went on a double date, and we were going to see a comedian, and the comedian didn't start till like 9 p.m. So we went to a restaurant first, and we ate, and we still had a couple hours to kill, so we went into a bar. We was going to have a drink or two there, and then, go see the comedian. And oh yes, and I was only drinking Pepsi, I promise. But anyway, they had karaoke at this bar, and for whatever reason, I had been thinking about God for pretty much the first time in my life. I had went to a Passion play one time and seen how Christ died for my sins, and I found myself thinking about God a lot. And that night, somehow, Greg, he never, at that point in his life, never wanted to talk about God. He really didn't believe in God. But Barb, on the other hand, boy, she had lots to say about God. And we were talking about God quite a bit at that bar where there was karaoke. And she showed me on the karaoke list that was at each table. She kind of laughed and said, "Look at Rick, they have Amazing Grace on the karaoke list at a bar." And I swear to God, when she showed me that, a lady started singing that up on the stage. And I looked at Barb, and Barb looked at me, and I thought it was like crazy. Barb knew exactly what was going on. Barb knew that, it was that time in life for me, and she knew that God was in the middle of all we were saying and doing that night. So I love you, Barb. She asked me about that church where I seen the Passion play at, if I had ever been to a service there, and I said, no, I've never been to a church service really at any church. But, I guess I've been to a Lutheran church a couple times or something, but anyway. So Barb says, well, do you want to go? And I said, sure, I'll go. And she says, I'll pick you up tomorrow morning. I'm like, wow, that was quick. And but sure enough, she did. Barb picked me up, and we went to Midland Assembly of God. It's now the Christian Celebration Center. And wow, changed my life forever. Changed my life forever. That morning at church, 2,000 people there, and like a 2-hour long service. And the whole time that pastor was preaching, he was talking to me. And I was where I was supposed to be. And, I owe my life to Barb for that. I owe my life to God first, but to Barb for that. So ended up going there for quite some time. Got baptized there. A gentleman from New York City came there as a guest speaker one year. And his name was Bill Wilson. And I can really relate to Bill because, it's kind of funny, but Bill Wilson had a Dutch boy kind of haircut. He looked like a Ramon. He had a Johnny Ramone hairstyle and holes in his jeans and a T-shirt. This guy has a ministry to this day. He still has this ministry in New York City, in the Bronx, and actually even worse than that, in Bushwick in the Bronx. And I guess it's, from what I've been told, or was told back then especially, you couldn't get a taxi driver or nobody to take you there. It was a bad neighborhood. And they had a building there, and they had some buses, and they would go out every Saturday and pick up kids all over the city, and they were busing in. I think at that time they were at around 10 grand. I know a few years after that, they were over 20,000 kids. Every Saturday they were busing in. This guy had a rough voice. It was kind of like this. He's, scratchy voice because he used to yell all the time preaching to those kids and stuff. But when they introduced him that Sunday morning, I'll never forget it as long as I live. When they introduced Bill Wilson, the 2,000 people at Celebration Center stood on their feet and clapped for 10 minutes. And he come walking from just out in the crowd. He wasn't setting up on the stage and setting up there with the pastor and the pastor's wife and the musical pastor and the associate pastor, they all had their chairs up on the stage, and but he wasn't sitting up there with them. He come walking from in the crowd, and I seen him take the stage, and he's got holes in his jeans and a t-shirt on, and he's got long hair, and his voice is really scratchy, and I'm like, who's this guy, I'm used to seeing people in suits and stuff, But anyway, he said a couple of things that changed my life forever. And the biggest one was this. I can quote it word for word. He says, I may not speak in tongues more than you all, and I may not be able to walk on water, but I can drive a bus. And, you know what? I messed that up. I may not speak in tongues more than you all, may not walk on water, and I don't sit in those holier than thou chairs, but I can drive a bus. So, of course, everybody kind of laughed. Funny thing, little side note, the following Sunday, the holier than thou chairs that the pastor and them used to sit in wasn't there no more. They took them down. But, just changed my life forever. So fast forward a couple years, my wife decides that the living clean, partying church life wasn't for her, and she left. And she put up a little bit of a fight, but I ended up with custody of Courtney and Tyler, my two oldest. And for the next 7 years, I single parented 2 kids, a boy and a girl. And but during that time, I had the pastor's blessing on being divorced from Joe, and he backed it up with scripture. I was to move on with my life, and so I was determined to be the best dad a man could be, And but I was struggling at that church because we had so many friends that were couples, and they were constantly, even a year later, still asking, how's your ex-wife? How is she? And so one day I was talking to the pastor, and he says, I don't do this very often, Rick, and I hate to lose you, but he says, you ever think about maybe trying a different church? There's some awesome churches around. And he told me about his friend's church in Mount Pleasant called the Potter's House. And so I thought, what the heck, I'll try it. So I went there on a Sunday morning. I really enjoyed the service. The pastor said he was sitting around in a circle of chairs with some guys in the afternoon if anybody wanted to come. So I went, sat around, got to know the pastor a little bit, and then that Sunday night, the children's pastor of that church, his name's Mark, he had the stage on Sunday night. And again, remember what I told you Bill Wilson said, don't forget that. Because here we are a couple years later now, and I'm at the Potter's House, and the children's pastor stands up front on Sunday night, and he's talking about his outreach that he has, where he goes out, he's got some workers, and they go out with vans, and they pick up kids around the Mount Pleasant area, Isabella County, and they bring these kids on Tuesday night, and they just give them some food, do a skit or something with them, sing some songs with them, just hang out and love on these little kids, And he was saying that they call it Tuesday Night Club. They did that on Tuesday night. He was saying that they were kind of full, that they had 100 and some kids, and it was going really well and doing well, but they were short workers, and really what they needed was people who could drive a van. And he may as well have said drive a bus, because when he said it, he needed people who can drive a van. All I could think of was what Bill said about driving a bus. And I had always felt like I was pretty on fire for God, and I love God, but I wasn't a speak in tongues, radical kind of guy, but I could drive a van. So I talked to Mark after he was done preaching that night, and one thing led to another. I ended up driving a van for him, working with kids, dove in head first, full throttle, did that for 5 years. We went from 100 kids when I first started to well over 200 kids. We had to split, and we did 2 nights a week instead of just one. We had 9 vans full every night. Had someone donate a bus to me, a 40-passenger city-type bus. And I remember going out with that bus the first time and picking up 22 kids. That was the most I ever had in a vehicle, you know. And the next week I had 28 kids. The next week I had 32, 36, 38. Before you know it, that 40-passenger bus, we was packing 80 kids in there. Don't tell nobody. So we probably weren't legal, but it was just a time. And that's, you know, during that ministry, going out picking up kids, is where I met my wife, Tanya. Her and I worked side by side with a bunch of other people for, I would say we worked probably a couple years, maybe even 3 years side by side. We've become pretty darn good friends. And, you know, every now and then a friend would ask me if I was ever going to get married again, and I would say no, and there was a season where my answer was always the same. No, unless I meet someone like Tanya, who's my age. And Tanya's quite a bit younger than me. I love Tanya. You know, like I said, we were friends. Everything about her was what I thought a good godly man needed for a wife. And but I never entertained the thought of her being my wife because she was so much younger than me. But anyway, I had a good friend, Tim Keppel, asked me that question one day, you ever going to get married again? And I told him that same answer. And he said, well, why not, Tanya? And I said, well, she's, you know, too much younger than me, Tim. And he said, so? And so I asked Tanya, and one thing led to another. She says, you know, yep. So, and that was 21 years ago. And 21 years and 3 kids later, here we are. Well, you guys could probably hear we got dogs upstairs, and there must be somebody outside or something, because let's just pause for a minute. Somebody's here. So yeah, like I was saying, that was 21 years ago, and you know, 19 years ago, this young man was born to Tanya and I. This is Joshua.
There we go. Hello, everybody.
Yeah. And Joshua he's been with us the whole time. He's in on the other side of the cameras. Joshua is my editor. He's gonna help produce this thing with me.
There we go.
And I love going fishing with them. I love going goose hunting with them, and now I love doing podcasts with them too. I think it's pretty awesome, and I'm blessed to be able to do this together with my son.
A lot of great stuff. Great journey.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, 21 years. Faith is our firstborn. She's a couple years older than Joshua, and then there's Joshua. Then we have Grace as well. And throughout the days ahead and months ahead, you'll meet all of them and get to know them better. And real quick, I got to finish my list here. So 21 years ago, we got married. I tell you, life was just what a blessing for many years. I worked full time. Tanya was a stay-at-home mom, and we lived paycheck to paycheck. Ate a lot of macaroni and cheese and hot dogs, but probably some of the happiest times of my life. Yep. And then somewhere not too long ago, about 3 years ago now, a little more than 3 years ago, during the pandemic, I was in a dark place. I was in a dark place in my life. I was, you know,
which a lot of us were. Pandemic messed up a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like trapping people in the house.
Yep.
Never really knew what to do. Messed up a lot of people. Yeah. Even me. Yeah.
And I was feeling like just a failure as a husband and as a father. I was in a dark place in my mind, and in fact, made a couple of probably not so smart choices. No, I made some stupid choices, and Tanya and I ended up separated for a little while. I think we both knew. I mean, it wasn't this bitter, angry thing. It was more some hurt, and we both knew that it wasn't going to be a permanent thing. We were going to end up back together. But we separated for 6 months. I rented a little place on my own, and probably 3 or 4 months into that, we started going to counseling together and going to a marriage class was at a church, marriage keepers, I think it was called. And, that's when I first started buying some of this gym equipment. And, a lot of what I'm going to share and my guests are going to share over the next year on this podcast took place during those times. Some dark times, but I found ways to get through it and come out bigger, better, stronger, more committed. I wrote thanks to David Goggins, it was his idea to write an ethos or a purpose for my life. And I'm not going to be able to quote it. It is written on the wall up there now. But basically, my goal in life is to be a better godly man, a better husband, a better father, and a better grandfather today than I was yesterday, and even better tomorrow than I am today. And I'm going to work hard at it, and I'm not going to quit when I get tired. I'm going to quit when I'm done. So that's my ethos. I started working out. Joshua works out quite a bit with me.
Oh my gosh.
What a blessing.
He goes insane with the gym. It's absolutely amazing.
And
it's amazing.
Yeah, thanks. It's changed my life. And again, yes, I like to look in the mirror. I do it for bigger muscles and stuff, no doubt about it. But more than that, I do it for the mental side of things.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much out there. There's so much inspiration. There's so much knowledge. Again, listening to Cam Haines and how his plan and his technique for working out and his mental state of mind, and of course David Goggins. I mean, David doesn't work out to get big muscles and to get fit for the physical side of it. He says it over and over again. He does it for the mental side. Mm-hmm. And I know, because 3 years ago I started. Okay, I built this little gym. Again, living paycheck to paycheck, by no means wealthy at all, and just bought some used equipment here and there, and put it all together, and
turned out pretty good. Yeah.
You think?
Got everything, dude.
He's got cousins that come over. They're down here throwing down.
It's amazing.
Over there, you can't see it on the camera, but over there's a punching bag he just got for his last birthday.
There we go.
He's been beating the crap out of that thing, and so
it's that mental thing. Gym and working out really helps with the mental. It's amazing what it can do.
It does.
It really is.
Yep. I part of my ethos is a quote from David Goggins, and it's, "I'm not going to quit when I'm tired. I'm going to quit when I'm done."
I'm done.
And when you do that physically, you find yourself doing that in other things too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You kind of develop this attitude of, I'm not going to quit. I can't believe it. I'm 61 years old, and just 3 months ago I started running.
Yeah.
I've never run 3 miles at one time in my life. Now I do it 5 or 6 days a week.
Yeah, I was about to say almost every day.
Yeah, it's just crazy. And
all the other 61-year-olds that I know personally, nothing like that. Nothing.
They got round bellies.
Yeah.
Yeah. They got one ab instead of 6. Yeah. No, but yes, yeah. True. A lot of them do. And anyway, I know where you're at if that's you. I know. Because I've been there. I've been around. I'm 61 years old. And most of my life, I was that guy too. I just soon come home from work and sit and watch TV and, and kind of got this poopy pants, woe is me mentality going on, But anyway, I know I've been there. And I don't have no super magical powers or no super great wisdom for y'all, but I do have a story to tell, and I hope I can inspire you in some ways to get after it a little bit. You know, if you need to lose some weight, start walking, you know. No, don't get up and start running right away. You don't got to do that. But you got to do something. You got to do something. And more and more and more and more today, you're seeing the benefits of people. The internet's crazy. You can find anything. And you can see stories all day long of people who have turned their lives around by just doing something, you know, not just doing nothing, but doing something, you know, and start small. You know, that's why there's a lot of steps on a ladder, you know. There's not like 3 steps to go 6 foot. No, there's about 6 steps, you know. But you got to take one. You got to take one, and then take the next one. So I written down in my notes here, I was gonna read this quote, and Joshua put a picture of it up earlier, but it says, "My past is what I've been through. It's not who I am. It's helped mold me, but it doesn't define me." And I love that, you know.
That's so good.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah, because so many times, you know, me in particular, I start looking back at some of my failures and feeling like, what's the use, you know? But nope, it's back there.
Yeah.
It's back there. You got to turn around and look back there. I'm not turning around. I'm not turning around. I'm looking ahead.
Look forward.
I'm looking ahead. So I'm going to end with this. I'm going to ask you all to cheer for Joshua. I'm going to ask him to go back and put up a picture for me because I want to talk about this picture. So wait a minute. Thanks, bud. Big time.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
You know, there's no way this is ever going to get anywhere without you. So
This is. I'm very excited. I know he can do it. I know I can do it, and anything's capable as long as you put in the time and the work. You can do anything.
yeah,
I'm ready for it.
Thanks.
I'm ready.
Good.
There we
Yeah, and on that note, while he's getting ready, you know, I guess I'll apologize a little bit. This is our first time, so you know, I've already thought of about 8 or 10 different things that I'm going to change before the next one. So I know I have a bad habit of reading sometimes, and I want to get away from that. I want to get a little whiteboard up here where I can look up and look at the cameras and still see my little notes. But instead of having paragraphs that I want to read, I'm just going to have little keynotes that trigger thoughts. I'm at my best when I've always been told that people like me, and I don't struggle at all talking. So if I got someone sitting next to me and I'm having a conversation with them, I can I've always done well at that. I'm not really bragging about that. It's hard for me to even say because I want to remain humble. But yeah, I've always been good at that. In fact, if there's anything concerning conversation with people that I need to work on, once I have guests on here, and that's going to be to listen, you know. Sometimes I tend to be kind of too talkative, but anyway, that's another story. I want to get away from looking down at my notebook and reading. But there's going to be a few things we're going to change, and I promise you it's going to get better every week. You know, there's coming a time real soon when all of you are going to be telling all your friends to listen to All Schuch Up. So, but anyway, I kind of want to end with this. Joshua, if you could show us picture number 12. Now this is actually right there, painted on the wall, right to my left. And go ahead and just leave that picture up, Joshua, if you would, please. Because I'm going to read it first. It says, what the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls a butterfly. That's a quote from a gentleman named Richard Bach. What the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls the butterfly. So what I'd like to do here, I'd like for you to imagine with me, if you will, just for a second. I don't think caterpillars can really think, but let's just for a second imagine that caterpillar can think. Let's think of some of the things that he may be thinking, like, you know, man, this life sucks, crawling around in the dirt all the time. You know, birds always trying to eat me. Life sucks. I'm just going to curl up in a cocoon and die. Maybe he's thinking that. Or how about this? How about if he's thinking, you know, maybe he's not to the point where he wants to die, but let's maybe he's thinking, you know, again, life sucks. All these other insects, I never get a break. Always crawling around in the dirt, can never find nothing to eat. You know, and none of them like me. Those birds don't like me. They're trying to eat me. None of these other bugs like me. I'm just gonna curl up in this cocoon and just hide. I'm just gonna get away from this crap. Or the one I like to think of the most, the one I'd like to think he's thinking, if he can think, is, you know what? This is hard. I need to make some changes. I need to get after it. You know, I'm gonna work out. I'm gonna crawl like crazy, and I'm gonna get tough, and I'm gonna build up that cocoon stuff in my body, and I'm gonna whip me up one wicked cocoon to live in, and I'm gonna go inside that cocoon, and I'm gonna just reinvent this body of mine. I'm gonna make some changes. I'm gonna do some things, and I'm gonna come out bigger, better, more beautiful, and more awesome than ever. I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna soar. I'm gonna fly. I like that. What do you think? Want to fly with me?